Mr. Carney, at the teachers' conference not long ago, you told about a program you have working at the Joseph B. Tyrrell School in Fort Smith for culturally retarded children. First of all, would you define a culturally retarded child for me?
A culturally retarded child in the context of the Northwest Territories is a child from a native background who for various reasons has not been in regular attendance in school, is from a language background other than English, and who is behind in school, say 3 or 4 years. In many centers in southern Canada, the subculture groups, say in a working class area of a large city, you would have children who you would call culturally retarded. Certainly in the United States, in the large cities, and particularly in the eastern United States, among Negro groups, we have many examples of cultural retardation and programs that have been developed to meet their needs, to try and upgrade their skills and bring them into contact with the dominant culture.
Could you tell me then a little bit about your program, how it got started?
Well, the program actually has been, I suppose, in operation right from the very beginning. Now, in Fort Smith, we have students coming to us from many northern communities, and these students, we have found, many of these students were behind in school 3, 4, 5, and 6 years. To put a 16-year-old girl in into a regular grade 2 classroom, we found it just didn't work, and that we really weren't meeting the educational needs of the child in this type of class environment. And so we established a number of classes, which we've given the name special classes for want probably of a better word, and these classes are structured in such a way that the academic skills that are so important to any child living in the 20th century, that these skills are taught in an appropriate manner. And at the same time, we realize, because of this cultural retardation, that many of these children will not progress through the regular grade structure. They will not go into high school. And in all probability, they will return to their own communities, remain with their families, and go out into the bush and continue the old way of life. So we're trying to keep them in both worlds. Now, the regular curriculum is modified for them. We want them to be able to read. We want them to be able to speak English. We want them to be able to do the various operations in arithmetic. We want them to know about the world. We want them to know about the world of science. We want them to have the opportunity of expression in music and art. We want them to learn various skills in physical education and so on. But at the same time, we want them to not forget their origins or not to forget their backgrounds, and to instill in them a sense of pride and a sense of belonging, that the culture from which they come is a good culture, and that if they do go back to the old way of life, they go back with skills which will help them in the old way of life.
Now, in a physical way, how is your school run?
We have a separate building apart from the main building of the Joseph B. Tyrrell School. It has 8 classrooms. We have approximately 100 students, and these are divided into 5 classes, according to age, not according to ability. For example, if a young girl comes down from a settlement such as Lac La Martre, and she's 12 years of age, and her reading level is just at the beginning, we would put her in an appropriate age group. So a girl of 12 would be put in the 3rd group, along with peers of the same age. Now, when she goes into that group, she would be taught arithmetic at her level, reading at her level, and language at her level.
At what level could they join the regular school program if they had been there for 5 years, say?
Well, the transfer from the special class program to the regular program can take place at any time. If you have a child in the 2nd level who is, let us say, 11 years of age, and by February of the 1st year is doing very well in reading and arithmetic and is at the grade 3 level, we would transfer this child to the regular pattern. Now, many of our native youngsters in our school are of course, in the regular pattern, and many of them have come out of the special class program.
And not all your Indian children coming into the school would have to go to this school either.
Oh, not at all. No, no. In many of our regular classes, the majority of the children are of native background, or from native backgrounds. Only those children who are behind in school, significantly behind in school, would go into the special class program. And if at any time they show ability, and it's in their best interest that they move into the regular program, they're transferred. So this gives us a great flexibility. The very fact that we don't use the word grade is a big help too. The children aren't in a grade. They are each one is in an individual grade. They are at a certain level. One child is in level 2 in arithmetic, and that child knows they're in level 2 in arithmetic. And that child can see the progress that he or she is making in arithmetic. And if the progress is significant, and if the child is ready for the regular program, they can be transferred.
Does this program need special skills as far as teachers are concerned?
Well, very definitely. The type of teacher and the type of training and the type of attitude that's required in these classes is something that we're just beginning to discover. The teacher who does well in what we may call a southern classroom will not necessarily do well in a special class. And many attitudes are required, and many of these are rather intangible. The second thing is that the teachers must have a great deal of freedom, and they must have a workable size group. And therefore we try to limit the number of children in each class. We're indeed very fortunate having a pupil-teacher ratio of about 1 teacher to 15 students. But the situation of having 40 children of a different culture in a classroom with 1 teacher simply doesn't work. And unfortunately in the past this was the case in some circumstances.
And this accounted for a large part for the dropout of these children having nothing, and frustration while they were there.
Yes, there was a dual frustration. The teacher was frustrated in that the children weren't progressing at a rate that the teacher expected. The feedback in the classroom was minimal, and the children found that the situation wasn't good.
How long has it been in operation?
It's been in operation for a long period of time. Now, that is special class programs, but the program as it's now in operation has really only been in effect for 2 years.
Has it been successful from the beginning, or have you had problems you had to change your way of thinking?
Oh, yes, we had problems. And one of the problems we had, that a common concept or administrative device in elementary schools was that a teacher would teach all skills. The elementary teacher would be a specialist supposedly in music and art, in physical education, in reading and language and arithmetic. Now, this simply isn't the case. And we have changed this concept in this way, that we have approximately 100 children. We have 5 teachers. 1 teacher teaches all reading to each of the groups. And in this way, the teacher becomes a specialist in a subject. Another teacher, for example, would teach all the social studies and music. And this has been, I think, a significant change.
So that this is a specialization on the elementary school level.
On the elementary school level, yes.
And what about the tangible results?
We're always looking, of course, results are very important. As many of them are very hard to assess. The first result that most people would look for would be, how far have the children progressed from the time they've entered school in September in a particular subject until the end of the year. Now, this we can measure. For example, in reading, a student may be reading at the 1.4 level, and at the end of the year we can give them another test and see their level of skill in that subject. Now, we have noticed in many cases a significant development in basic skills, and in other cases a very limited one. But we're not really concerned that in some cases it's a limited development, because we know that not all these children are going to enter the regular high school stream. But if we can give them develop in them good attitudes towards work and an interest in these subjects, we feel that they will come back again next year and that we'll be able to work with them further. But the idea of the program is not to take all these children and eventually put them into the regular grade system. And that isn't our purpose. It's one of the things that can happen to them, and we want to give them this opportunity. But we know from experience, because of cultural reasons, that many of these children will go back to their own community. So we don't try and set our main objective, that is upgrading their skills and putting them in the regular system. And I think this is one of the dangers in these programs.
Isn't this essentially what we would like to be able to do in our regular schools, to let a child move at his own speed?
Yes, and we try to do this too, but I think that the structure of a program helps a great deal, and the structure of the special class program leads to this administratively, and but of course administratively this is not a very good reason, but logically and in the interest of the child it leads to a great deal of flexibility.